All right, y'all got me. I'm not really Drake, but we're really doing two sum. So I initialize a left and right pointer. My exit condition is whenever they cross. If the current sum is above my target, then I need to move my right pointer to the left. If it's below, I need to move my left pointer to the right. Otherwise, I found a match, and I'll return. I want to return a list of the one indexed indices. So I'm going to add one. That's based on the requirement in the question. Let me get my current sum. The current sum is the sum of the left index of numbers and the right index of numbers. I'll replace my pseudocode conditions now. This is the syntax to decrement the right pointer by 1. And there you go. Boo! 2 minutes. LeetCode is a 2-minute problem. Welcome in, welcome in. I dislike LeetCoding. Hey, then you're not cool with Drake, apparently. Drake loves LeetCoding. All right, there's two sum. Where do we go from here? We're following the laterally kata. That was the ordered input. From here, we'll move on to three sum. These create a bit of a meta flow between LeetCode problems because the optimal solution to three sum is to wrap two sum in an O of n wrapper. So I'll start out with some pseudocode notes, just like I would in a real interview. Intuitively, I can wrap an optimal two sum in an O of n wrapper. Time complexity, O n squared. Space complexity is constant, just pointers. In three sum, we're not returning a one index, we're returning the values. And there's not a unique solution. There could be multiple solutions, or there could be 0 solutions. In this example too, the output is an empty array. So we need to account for all these possible cases. And we need to deduplicate. So we will have results be a set for auto deduplication. And we'll store tuples. Because you can't store lists literal because they're not hashable. So let me initialize a wrapper index to 0. This far left, this will move left to right. So you could also call it a far left or a super left. So I initialize results, I initialize my wrapper index, and now I'm going to say while wrapper index is less than the length of nums. Do two sum, and then we'll need to fast forward duplicates to save on runtime. Here I'll call self.toSum, and I will pass the same arguments that I currently have: nums, results, wrapper index. I also need to pass the complement. All three values should sum to 0. So the complement is going to be just the opposite of whatever the wrapper index is. That means the inner 2 will sum to that opposite, then across the 3 will sum to 0. Make sense? So here I get the wrapper index of nums, and I take the opposite. Then I'm passing the complement. And here I'll say while the complement is retained. So while nums, the opposite of the wrapper index, is equal to complement, then we will fast forward the wrapper index. And this is guaranteed to hit in the base case because it's the same expression literal. But every time I increment, it's not guaranteed to hit. It may or may not hit. Plus equals 1, so we're incrementing that. Eventually, we exit the loop. Since it's guaranteed to hit every time, we're guaranteed to exit the loop, and I'll eventually just return results. Now let me define the two-sum. We start with self because we're on the solution class. Then the arguments that I pass are nums, results, wrapper index, complement. I initialize left, only looking to the right window of the wrapper index. That's how we're eventually collapsing this window to the point of 0. I'll get to your comment in a minute. Let me finish up this solution. Thanks for being here, by the way. Tap like on the video to spread it around. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, hit like on the video, spread it around. If you're on TikTok, you can go to the link in my bio and see the full screen with YouTube or Twitch. Thanks for being here. I'll get to your questions in a minute. After I wrap up this question, I'll go to questions. Okay, so left is going to be the wrapper index plus 1. Right is going to still be the length of nums minus 1. And we'll use the same condition, while left is less than right. And now it's the same two-sum that we just did. So this is the metaflow of the kata. I'm able to draw on the previous problem to help execute the current problem. It's a memorization-based approach. LeetCode has so much memorization. I think that if you memorize the solution, you can learn the deeper layers later, as opposed to trying to learn the abstract pattern before you even memorize the solution. I think it's easier to go with memorization first. So here we're using nums, the left index, nums, the right index. If my current sum is above the target, and here the target is called complement. Else if the current sum is below the complement, else found match. And here I want to add a sorted tuple because the values need to be entered in the result in left-right order. You see these examples? -1, -1, 2, -1, 0, 1. These are the expected output. The values are always sorted. Conveniently, my values are always sorted based on the outer wrapper value. So I can say complement, left, right. It's always going to be in order. I don't need to call an extra sort function. So I sort my tuple, I add it, and then I need to fast forward duplicates because I can have more than one result. I can have more than one result at the wrapper level and at the interior two-sum level, at both levels. So my condition will be similar, but it won't be literally the same. The logic will be similar, but the expression won't be this complement expression. Here I'll say while cur left is retained. So cur left is nums left. So we're basically caching this single value here. It's a single pointer. So while nums left is cur left, left will be incremented by 1, and that's guaranteed to hit. I need to make sure that I don't overflow the boundary of the array. So I need to say, while left is less than right, I need to repeat this expression. And basically, I'm skipping these if condition logic. Let me go back and put the if condition logic. So when the current sum is higher, I move the right pointer in. And when the current sum is lower, I move the left pointer up. Here, I have the correct while loop complement retain expression, but I need to make sure that I don't exceed the boundary, or I'll get an out of boundary error. So let me also check, before I check the complement expression, I check the wrapper index, because we want to make sure that we're in bounds before we take the index off of nums. Before, later, before, later. I think we're ready to check. Let's see what happens. Expected a colon, missed a colon. Not a big deal. Wrong answer. What's wrong here? My output was empty. Did I append improperly is what I should be looking for. So here's the sorted tuple. Results.add the sorted tuple. Results doesn't need to be returned from toSum because it's by ref. Nums results wrapper index complement. I'm checking my argument order to make sure I didn't get my arguments mixed up. That would break the reference. That would cause this problem. Nums results wrapper index complement. Looks like they're in the same order. Checking spelling, making sure that I didn't fail to pass a variable just because it was misspelled. And then the next thing is we'll go to print statements if needed. Let's also double check my condition logic. Flip-flopping these is a common source of problems. So if my current sum is greater, then I want to move my right to the left. If my current sum is less, I want to move my left to the right. That looks good to me. So let's start some print statements. First print statement I will do is to make sure that I'm getting into my while loop. Second print statement I'll do is to make sure that I'm getting into my inner while loop. Third print statement I'll make is to make sure that I'm getting into my match finding block. Fourth statement I'll do is to make sure that I'm getting into my inner fast forward. Fifth statement I'll do is to make sure that I'm getting into my outer fast forward. Doing these all at once will save you time in the interview as opposed to doing them one at a time. So let's read first, second, fifth, first, second. So we're getting into the fifth without getting into the third and fourth. So that looks like our problem. I don't think this is the problem, but let's add parentheses, better safe than sorry. If, elif, else, let's try again. First, second, and I never get to my third. So something is wrong in my toSum logic. Let's see. Left is wrapper index plus 1. Right is length of nums minus 1. Let's look at the sums themselves. I'll turn this into an F string. Variable name, value, comma, and then I also want my complement. Variable name, value. Four, 3, 2, and they're negatives. Right. So the target that I should be chasing here is 0 rather than the complement itself. So let me add the complement in to the current sum, and I'll say if current sum is over or under 0. Let's see if this fixes the problem. 3, 2, 1. Here I should expect to hit when current sum is -1 and complement is 1, the sum should be 0. Current sum is -1. Complement is 1. Oh, actually my current sum, yeah, it can be negative. That's fine. So I should hit the third block this time, but I don't. Cur sum never gets to 0. Let me also print nums because I didn't sort. That's my issue. Now that I'm sorting, I'll restore my original cur sum to complement logic. Let me also print nums, and we can walk through a test case. So here we can see that it's sorted. -4 will never hit. So we get first, and then we go to fifth and go to first again. That's fine. With the second case, we should get the pair of 0, 1 to enter the third block. And we do. So we should not have empty results, and we don't have empty results. So that's looking good. Our problem is no longer empty results. Our problem is that we are placing indices when they want values. So let's change it over. So now instead of left, I say nums left. And now instead of right, I say nums right. Now instead of complement, I place the wrapper index. One, 0, 1 is not correct. 1, 0, 1 is not correct. I'm double checking the description, making sure that they want indexes or values. Oh, no, they want values. I should have left the complement that way. Okay, this is still the wrong answer. This doesn't even sum to 0, so that's a red flag. Let's eliminate the other prints besides the third block. We'll see when we get into third block, how could it be that we are appending 1, 0, 1? So I'll get rid of my other prints. The sort is n log n, time complexity, which isn't binding. On our overall O(n squared is slower, so that will be the binding constraint. So now we only have prints in this else block. Let's read them. Cur sum is 1, complement is 1, because we should be looking at, yeah, this is right. We should be looking at the current sum versus the complement. But I have my directions inverted, it seems. Current sum is 1 and complement is 1. then I should be recording the opposite of the complement. Yep. Okay. So the complement is the target for the inner two sum, but it's not the right value to place into the answer. You need the opposite of the complement because the opposite of the complement is the wrapper index on nums. All right, let's try and get rid of these print statements to improve the performance and then submit. All right, and we got it. So that took 20 minutes. Thanks for being here. All right, let's go to questions. Was OP laid off? Is that why you're leak coding? You guessed it. It's nums, wrapper index, or opposite of complement. That's correct. You're right. I was returning the opposite value. What are you trying to do? Hopefully you got the point on that. Let me know if it still wasn't clear. I'll go back over it. Which leak code question is this? This was 3 sum. We just did 3 sum, a medium. Good questions. Thanks for being here. Tap like on the video so that the algorithm will send it around. You can also, if you're on Twitch or YouTube, like it there. Send it with a friend. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for being here. If you're already a programmer, thank you so much for being here. If you're new to coding, this is the right place if you want to learn. Maybe not this particular lesson. You probably don't want to start learning with a medium leak code. But Latterly.io has a step-by-step checklist. You can sign up for free. And it will help you land your first or next programming role. So here's the checklist. And it starts with basic search techniques. Before you even learn how to code, you need to learn how to search. Use Google, use ChatGPT, use reference code. Searching will help you learn any topic that you need to learn for any language. So fundamental video there. And then there's the trial by fire, which in the course of an hour will expose you to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you can really dive in and see the big picture and then step back and get into the details after you have the big picture. Probably going to switch to computer science. Cool, cool. I'm confused when my instructors start explaining stuff. Hey, that's a great reason to come join the Discord. You can ask questions. You can also ask questions here, but if I don't get to your question, you can join the Discord and discuss with the community. Thank you for sharing. Very, very welcome. Interview cake is really good as well if anyone is interviewing. Thank you, Lila. Great tip. Great tip. What are your thoughts on AI? Is it going to replace jobs in engineering? AI is a tool. It's going to help us. It's not going to replace us. I've been saying this since the big Devin scare. Everyone is concerned about Devin, and I'm telling you, no, it's not going to replace anyone. It's going to help us. I use ChatGPT regularly. We use Copilot regularly. That's going to be currently discouraged during the interview. But once you get into the job, most companies are no longer discouraging that. They're going to have an information policy that kind of controls what you're allowed to put in there. But as long as you comply with that policy, then it's generally allowed. Just click restart. That usually sorts out everything. That would be great. Yeah. Actually, it often does, because if you restart the problem and you go through the steps, you can see when I was returning the complement instead of the opposite of complement, I just missed a step. And sometimes literally wiping out the problem is a good technique because you go through those mental checks and you just might not miss it the second time around. It's really not a bad tip to just restart it. The other big tip that I'll give you is time box and look at the answer. So we did this in a little under 20 minutes. I would have liked to have been able to do 3 sum within 5 minutes is my actual goal. So you can see that I'm quite rusty. But if I hit that 30-minute mark, I would probably look at the solution for a medium in particular. For a hard, I might go up to 40, 45. I might even give myself an hour. But you need to be emulating an interview setting. And at my level, I'll be interviewing for senior and staff. So at my level, being able to do 2 hards in an hour is expected. 2 hards in an hour is expected for the more difficult companies like a Facebook, a Meta, an Instagram interview. Other companies will not have that bar, but if you're prepared for that bar, the other ones are cake, right? What information limits will workplaces put on AI? For example, using the literal name of an internal project. So Django apps are generic. It's a generic category. Flask apps are a generic category. A Next.js web application is a generic category. Feel free to prompt GPT about that. But your company might have Moonlander. Moonlander might be the name of a specific Flask app. Your company may discourage you from using the term Moonlander. They will probably, even if they don't discourage it, just don't do it. Don't use the term Moonlander in the public GPT with training data on, because then you will be getting your internal company information out on the open web. So that's a bad practice. So what you want to use is generic names, generified terms, like say a Flask app instead of Moonlander. You want to use generified names and obfuscated terms. And then you want to provide the minimal relevant information, just like you're filing a GitHub issue. Don't bring a bunch of unnecessary, unrelated logic to your GitHub issue or your Stack Overflow question. Treat it similarly. You want the minimal reproducible example on GitHub, on Stack Overflow, and you should use the minimal reproducible information for your ChatGPT prompts as well. Have a nice rest of your day. Thank you so much. Devin was ousted as a fake video as well. That's correct. That's correct. I thought LeetCode was only for DSA. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And DSA is a common whiteboarding interview round. So this is basically interview prep. This is not the only interview prep you should be doing, by the way. This is one of 3. So you also have your behavioral rounds where you want to use the STAR or SOAR method. Make sure that you have concrete numbers in your project deep dives when you review them. What was the outcome? You're going to have a bunch of projects that you could draw on the ones that have a nice outcome. STAR or what? Yeah, the STAR method. STAR method behavioral interview. So here's the STAR method. You can look into this. And the other is SOAR. It's basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing. So you can pick either one. You don't need to memorize like different answers depending on the different method. Probably just stick with STAR method. And then if you go to interview at a company and they tell you we use the SOAR method, just be mindful that that's pretty much the same thing. So you don't need to redo everything. The third round is system design. And for system design, Exponent is going to be a good recommendation. I like LeetCode for my DSA coding interview rounds. I also like interviewing.io even more. Interviewing.io will allow you to connect with a real human who actually works at FANG. I usually engage interviewing.io after I have my basics in place. So I'm going to go to LeetCode to get my basics. When I say basic, I'm talking about senior staff level basic. So the basics for me is more than enough for you to get a junior or even a mid-level job. So you might not even need to use interviewing.io, but you still can if you'd like to. It can get expensive. It can get expensive. You have to pay for those mock interviews with FANG engineers. So that's why I like to knock out my basics first and then come to interviewing.io to polish up and harden up. Then I'm ready to interview pretty much. Someone mentioned Interview Cake. I don't know if they do system design. Let's check. Tap chat URL shortener ticket sales. Okay, great. So maybe you use Interview Cake for system design as well. I lean towards Exponent, but maybe that's just because I haven't used this site enough. Maybe it's even better. What is the material you use for system design prep? Yep, I was just talking about Exponent. Exponent. So this is where I would point you to. In terms of open source projects, we have Latterly. We also have Rockstar Boy. Rockstar Boy. And this is a star and store method anecdote organizer for behavioral interview prep. Currently, this is deployed by itself. So you can use this tool. You can also just use Google Docs. You can make a Google Doc list of your anecdotes. I'll give you a quick look at one of these that I'm working with. So this is literally just a collection of anecdotes where it has a title and I can jump around, and then it has the outcomes, and you just write out the talking points. This is actually too long, by the way. You can see that this was the brain dump phase. After the brain dump phase, you want to reduce that into an elevator pitch, basically. What are anecdotes? Anecdotes are stories about your past. An anecdote is just a story. And so these will be used as your behavioral interview answers. A short, amusing, or interesting story. You can make it amusing if you want. For the purposes of an interview, it doesn't need to be amusing. It should be short and interesting. And when we talk about a behavioral interview, when we say interesting, we mean demonstrating impact. So you want concrete numbers there. Great questions. Thank you so much for being here. Please follow the channel, like, follow, share it with a friend. What is your recommended leak coding strategy? It's the Latterly LeetCode Kata. Blog article number 3, available on the LeetCode on the Latterly blog. Article number 7 also has LeetCode solutions. So here I went from memory, and that is the goal, to get the solution into your own brain. If you don't have the solution, you can look on the solutions tab in LeetCode. I have a premium account, so I can see all the solutions. You may not have a premium account, but you can still see solutions in the open source free Latterly LeetCode solutions. In addition, even if you can access the LeetCode solution, sometimes the Latterly solution is clearer or better. I never came anecdotes that vocabulary. That's okay. Vocabulary is a large learning goal in software engineering. Search is the most important thing in software engineering. The very first thing that you want to do is search. Vocabulary enables you to search. Now, thanks to new large language models, you don't actually need to know the vocabulary ahead of time. You can have a conversation with AI and then ask it for technical words that have that meaning, and you can learn vocabulary with a ChatGPT. Still, learning that vocabulary is going to pay huge dividends. It's going to be more important for you to learn technical vocabulary than it is going to be learning particular system design case studies. Because once you have the vocabulary to search, you can go study the case studies later. So when people talk about learning fundamentals, arguably nothing is more fundamental than vocabulary and search technique. Even data structures and algorithms are later than vocabulary and search technique. Does that make sense? You need the vocabulary to even talk about the data structure, and then using the data structure as a second stage. Wow, this Latterly thing is so cool. Thank you very much. You can join the Discord for free. It's complete. So go to the community tab. There's the Discord. I hope to see you after the stream. If I didn't get to your question, you can ask a question there. And this is completely open source. So if you see an improvement for the website, just come submit a pull request. There are many, many outstanding issues. A few of these I will be solving today. So it only gets better when I have spare time. And now that I'm laid off, I have spare time. Thanks everyone for being here. And that's going to do it for today.